Hello and welcome to Horror Boys. It's a podcast on the internet. I'm Austin, joined as always by
Chris.
And Isaiah.
And we are the Horror Boys. And this is a horror movie review podcast where every week we review a horror movie. That's what it is. There's nothing else to it.
Okay, I thought you were going to add more on to the end.
No, I don't have anything else to add. We review movies. We typically do them franchise by franchise, and we just finished up a double franchise last week. And today we're starting a much smaller franchise, but a four-movie franchise nonetheless, in Hatchet. So I think it might be time to just jump right into our thoughts. No, I'm just kidding. We're just going right to the end. This is short. We heard Chris's complaints. The episodes are getting too long, so we've decided to literally cut it down to just the thoughts portion at the end. No, we're still going to go over our overly in-depth at times, because I'll be honest, I actually got a comment recently, and they really liked how in-depth we go into the movies. So we got one viewer randomly on YouTube who liked what we're doing, so we're going to keep doing it.
All right.
Considering we weren't going to stop anyway, even if no one watched it. But
oh, yeah.
So we open up on Pa, who is played by the legendary Robert Englund. And
oh my gosh.
yeah,
I didn't look it up. I was waiting on this moment for confirmation.
You couldn't just tell? You need a confirmation? No, it's so obviously Robert Englund.
Well, I've only ever seen him in
Freddy makeup.
Whoa,
yeah.
You saw him in New Nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
When he plays himself.
Yeah.
Making appearances
that's
on
fair.
TV.
That's fair. But yes, that was Robert Englund. If you weren't able to tell, and his son, who is Ainsley, is not some big special person in the horror world. He's just an actor. I didn't write down what the actor's name was, because I only write down the actors that intrigue me and I want to talk about. He might be your favorite actor, and if so, I'm sorry. But yeah.
So why?
I mean, maybe to be fair, I'm not going to blame anyone or judge anyone's careers off of this movie. A lot of these actors might have had better roles at other points, or maybe have had worse roles at other points. Who knows? But we're on a swamp, because this movie takes place in New Orleans, Louisiana. That's the setting. I don't know why my brain's just... I had one of those moments where my brain just stopped working. But I think I'm ready to keep going.
All the time.
Yeah.
Just a small stroke.
Yeah. I guess,
in the beginning of the
because
recording.
I had a small stroke there, we'll just throw in a fun fact. This movie was actually not filmed in Louisiana for the most part. There were some establishing shots, but the majority of this movie was actually filmed, shockingly, in like a desert in California, and they made it look like a swamp. Because there are obviously some of the scenes that are on the water that I believe might have been shot at a swamp, but most of this movie was shot in a desert. So that's a fun,
I just
crazy,
don't understand it.
Yeah, crazy movie fact that somehow they were able to pull that off. Because you cannot tell that this movie is shot in a desert.
Nope. And I just don't see why. It's always for budgetary reasons or something. Well, it's cheaper to build an entire swamp than to drive over to Louisiana.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
It boggles the mind.
Well, Ainsley and Pa, they're looking for gators. Then we have this whole this bit where Ainsley, he can't pee because he's in a boat, and also sadly, I gotta call it out when things I don't like happen. Robert Englund does kind of throw out some homophobic slurs, which it's time to time. It's 2006. I'm not
Dark
gonna,
ages.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be mad at Robert Englund for it, but I can be mildly disappointed when I go back and see it. I'm like, dang it, Robert Englund, why'd you say yes? But also, everyone was doing it. It's sadly part of the times. But yeah, so Ainsley can't pee. That's basically the beginning of this movie. So they go off, and now they're not on the boat because there was a gator jump scare as Ainsley was peeing.
Yeah, because they're hunting gators.
Yeah, because they're hunting gators. But I'm more saying while he was peeing, because the whole first part of this movie is his pee jokes.
Yeah, really setting the tone for the movie, I think.
I feel like this movie does slightly elevate past pee jokes later.
Ever so slightly.
You were laughing your butt off during the movie, so I'm not going to take this
I don't
modern...
know if I was laughing my butt off. I definitely giggled at a few
He
moments.
giggled at a lot of moments. Don't listen to him, audience. You were laughing at, like, all the things I was laughing at.
I don't know if that's true,
Okay.
but we'll continue.
Okay.
Conflict.
But yeah, so Ainsley gets, his dad to pull over the boat. I guess that's the way I'm going to word that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's how they say it in the movie, and it struck me as well. Like, is that what you do with a boat? You pull over?
Yes, because that's what me, who also has never really used boats, which makes me think that maybe they weren't used to using boats in real life. The writer here, what's his name? Adam Green. I had it written down for a later fact. But yeah, so where was I? This is an episode. Apparently, my brain is just. I guess maybe some explanation for why this episode might be a little off the rails from my end is I have been dealing with some of the worst allergies I've ever dealt with for the past month, but specifically this week, these allergies have been just kicking my butt. So if my brain's mush, it's because it's mush. But yeah. So Ainsley, he starts looking for his pa, and he does find him. Him being a mangled body on the boat in a manner that definitely was not a gator, which does obviously scare Ainsley. And so Ainsley then gets attacked by a roaring man. We don't see it at this point. We don't see Victor Crowley. That's spoiler. Spoiler, this is Victor Crowley who does this. You may be asking, who's Victor Crowley? Don't worry. We'll let you know when they
We'll establish that
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah, right now it's supposed to be a mystery. Who's killing these people? But yeah, he rips Ainsley's arms off and then shoves his hand into his lower back, ripping out part of his spine before then ripping him in half. And there is just so much blood. And
Just buckets of it,
yeah.
being tossed around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say there are moments where they literally just throw buckets at trees that it goes a little too far. But in general, I do want to just genuinely for a moment here praise this movie's gore. I love everything but the occasional shot where they throw blood at the tree. Like any of the time you see the blood in the moments, yeah, it's more blood than probably should be there, but it's still really cool and really well done. And then they have shots of trees getting blood splashed at them, which is a little too far maybe. Maybe if we just cut out the buckets of blood hitting trees. And that's the worst part though, is it is definitely straight up a bucket of blood. It's not like
Yes, it's obvious that they're bailing the blood into the air. There's no
first
spatter
bucket
of
of
it.
pig's blood.
Yeah.
They're just, and you can see the water or the blood just.
Yeah, no, that's fair. This movie is over the top, and the effects were done by a legendary makeup artist. I know you guys might get excited. It's not Tom Savini, which is the only one we've specifically talked about on our podcast, but it was done by John Carl Beekler, who has done some effects for a lot of different properties over the time. I didn't write down any of them right here, but I know one of the things he specifically did was he directed, actually, Friday the 13th, Part 7. That's the Jason versus Carrie. Sorry. A New Blood.
Oh.
A new bucket of blood thrown at a tree. A movie that, ironically, is for its history in the Friday films, is the movie where all of the gore is cut by the MPAA. So,
I had forgotten.
Which makes sense when you watch this movie.
Maybe. Also, another fun fact about all this gore and stuff, and it's all practical. Adam Green specifically did not want any CGI in his movie. He will, when there's times where it's prosthetics and stuff, but they will hide the shots in kind of those techniques that filmmakers will use to try to get one of those long shots that are typically to look like one shot. Those really long shots that'll hide a cut in a door closing or something like that. There's a specific shot where they hide it at Victor Crowley's back before they switch to the prosthetic. But they did not use CGI at all in this movie, which is a breath of fresh air, especially after watching Freddy vs. Jason or Nightmare on Elm Street reboot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but I might be more praising it than the boys here, but I think the effects in this movie are absolutely amazing, and part of why I really enjoyed this movie. Spoilers. Yeah, the effects were really cool in my opinion.
They're satisfying, for
Yeah.
sure.
Then
They
we
are.
go to some awful credits. The credits themselves weren't bad, but the song playing over them was so horrible. It is so just. I don't even know how to describe it. It is just. It is rough.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that is probably the best way to describe
It
it.
also plays over the closing credits, so that's cool. They really liked the song, apparently. I think it actually is a different version of the song over the closing credits. Because I want to say this beginning part is sung by a man, but the closing credits is sung by a woman. I mean, maybe
It
it's
is.
a different part of the same song. I don't know this song, so I don't care. But maybe, but it might have been them recording two versions of this song for this movie. So that's cool. It sucks. And the song continues as we head over to some the Mardi Gras portion of this credit scene, which is where we just this movie said, "Hey, we're a slasher film. We know what you want in a slasher film, stereotypically, and that is boobs." So this movie said, "What if we set our movie in Louisiana so we
And
can have
Louisiana.
yeah, so we can
you're
have a
right.
Mardi Gras scene where there are at least 12 different women that flash the camera."
Yeah.
Pretty copious boobage.
And we're still in the credits for all of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it happens. As the credits kind of end, we get established with some characters. We get established with Ben, who is he's going to be our protagonist throughout this movie. Well, one of our
Unfortunately.
protagonists. And he is kind of a killjoy to all his friends who just want to, Mardi Gras it up. They want to, they want to drink. They want to throw some beads. And, he's just a big old sourpuss because he got dumped. Or broke
And
up.
you can tell he's going to be our 2000s protagonist because he's slouchy and wears a lot of dark colors.
Mm,
While his other friends are dumb jocks that want to have fun.
yeah.
But he's a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is played by Joel David Moore, who is in Avatar, the Avatar movie. He's also cast to be in the sequel, so I guess his character survived that first movie. I don't remember Avatar, but he's in that. Other fun fact about him throughout this whole movie. This is a fun fact for a very small subsection of the the world. This whole movie, he's wearing a Newberry Comics shirt, which is a comic book shop in the New England area that it's got multiple different places, but it's a really cool comic shop. It's a comic shop in name. It was one of those things where it probably was a comic shop at one point, but by the time I went there in the 2000s, there was some comics in the back corner, but for the most part, it was a DVD store. But I love Newberry Comics, so I was like, oh, that's a Newberry Comics shirt. Cool. And, if you lived in New England in the mid-2000s, you'll also be like, hey, it was Newberry Comics.
Hey, New England.
Yeah, New England things. We also meet Ben's friend, Marcus, and a bunch of other characters that never get names and are only in this scene, one of which is played by Adam Green, the director and writer. He is the guy wearing the pot necklace.
That tracks.
And Ben is saying things that no man who is, heterosexual man at least, has ever said. He asks if they've seen enough boobs, and his friends are all really surprised by that and disagree.
Just aghast.
They're like, how dare you say something like that? And Ben, he doesn't want to do this. He heard about it from some other friends that there is this cool haunted swamp tour, and he wants to go. And his friend Marcus agrees to go with him. And that scene. That scene goes on for longer than that, but that's the gist of it. Is I don't want to be here. I want to go to a swamp tour. And his friend eventually just goes, fine, I'll go with you.
Yeah, right.
And then complains about him having gone for the rest of the movie. Which, to be fair, at times it definitely makes sense when he wanted to just be doing Mardi Gras and now he's being chased for his life. I guess that's fair at that point. He did make the wrong
What a
choice.
killjoy! Can't just
Yeah.
enjoy the murderous chase.
Yeah. He did make the wrong choice. Adam Green, the director, made the right choice staying in Mardi Gras. Wait, no, he did have to be there for the rest of it because he's the director. But
Yes.
where were
True.
we?
So now they're going to go to find the swamp tour.
Yes.
And
so-
they do, but they're
Kind of.
closed.
Yeah, they walk up to where they think the
Aw.
swamp tour is. They knock on the door, and we get our second cameo of the movie because this movie's got some cameos. We got Tony Todd showing up, and which if you don't know who Tony Todd is, he plays Candyman, and that's probably his biggest role. Yeah, and he's awesome. He's Tony Todd. He's barely in this movie. He's in one scene, but he eats that scene up because he's Tony Todd. Yeah, he has a very funny scene because I personally, at least, think that for the most part, I actually think this movie's comedy landed for me at least. Obviously,
Yes,
comedy is
yeah.
subjective, so if you don't like the comedy, that's fine. I thought for the most part the comedy lands. I actually think that Marcus and Ben's comedy, which is sadly the main comedy you see, was the comedy that normally would not land.
Fell flat?
Which is kind of unbalanced, but I do think there was some really funny stuff like this scene where Tony Todd explaining why he can't do the tours anymore, and he starts explaining how it's like about insurance reasons, and you kind of think like, oh crap, did someone die on this trip? No, someone just slipped and is suing him, so he can't do it anymore. And then he closes the door and leaves, and it's like, all right,
Gross negligence. Ooh.
yeah. It was a funny scene that was made funnier by the fact that it was horror legend Tony Todd delivering this stupid line, but I enjoyed it. But he does give them knowledge of where to go next, which is Mary Laveau's, which there is no Mary Laveau. I just want to point that out there.
Yeah. Instead, there's
Sean.
John.
Yeah. So they head on over to Mary Laveau's, and they meet Sean, who is Sean. He is trying to pretend to be from New Orleans for this portion of the movie. We find out basically this scene's kind of just there. He's getting them to agree to go on the strip. Marcus doesn't really want to. Marcus makes Ben pay for it. We also get our first of our scenes with Misty and Jenna in this one. They are our dumb
boob
whores.
relief. Comic relief.
Yeah, they're our booby comic relief. They're filming a knockoff of Girls Gone Wild. I believe it's called Bayou Beavers.
Girls Gone Mild.
Yes, It is not called Girls Gone Wild. It is called, I believe, Bayou Beavers. I believe that is established in the story. But yeah, I will say, and this maybe my boys will disagree here, and that's fair. I loved most of the scenes Jenna and Misty were in. Misty especially was hilarious. I really thought a lot of her lines were really funny. I will say, because this is not how we do this show, I don't write down every line she said that's funny. I wrote down like one that I thought was really good. But if you, she actually has done some other. Obviously, every actor in this has done some other work, but specifically in the horror adjacent at least space, Misty is played by Mercedes McNabb, who played the character Harmony in Buffy and Angel. So if you're a fan of Buffy and Angel, which I am, she's in that. And Misty and Jenna are being filmed by Doug, who is random fact
Doug Shapiro.
He's Doug Shapiro, yes. Ben Shapiro's brother, who is played by Bill Murray's brother, Joel Murray.
There's a third Murray?
Apparently.
The
So
trio
he's
of
like-
Murrays.
He's like the other Manning.
I guess.
They played basketball in high school.
He's the non-football Manning. Oh, that's the
Yeah.
B movie
Yeah.
Murray.
Yeah.
B.
I wasn't going to write down anything about Doug's character because he wasn't an actor that stuck out to me as, ooh, I need to write about him. But then I saw his name was, Murray, and I was like, huh. Oh, he is Bill Murray's brother. All right. So, there's your fun fact about Doug.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sean. We end up finding out Sean charges them $40, which is really important later because we find out that he actually ripped them off because he only charged the hot girl $30. So,
Dude.
Yeah.
yeah.
But you haven't introduced her yet.
Well, we haven't met her yet because we haven't gotten on the bus yet.
Okay.
We meet her on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Because now we're going to get on the
Okay,
bus.
you're right. I'm getting mixed up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we get on the bus and we get to meet the rest of our fun characters. We get to meet two of our other fun characters and the main
Thank you.
character. Which, to be fair, I actually think Mary Beth, I don't remember the name of her actress, but I actually think she did a really good job in this. Like, she did a good job playing this final girl. I didn't think she, like, stood out as bad. She just wasn't a fun character. She wasn't written to be a fun character. She's just kind of here.
Yeah, I think we have seen main characters that are like just kind of there, and I do think she's above that.
Yeah,
She's not the comic relief by any means.
I would
but
say when I say she's just there, I more mean in the sense of I don't really remember any qualities about her other than being there. But it wasn't like this type of people. Other ones who there are some that are so bad or so just there. They're like a vacuum of. She's not a vacuum of charisma like we've had like with is it Tori? I think, in Freddy vs. Jason. That character, every scene she was in, I wanted the scene to end. I didn't feel that way about Mary Beth. It was just, she was here. And, like, it wasn't that it was a bad thing. It was just that it wasn't a good thing. Like, these other two characters we're about to meet, which is Jim and Shannon, the stars of the movie.
Dude.
The best part of the movie, may they rest in peace.
Spoilers.
Dude.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I love Richard Reel.
Yes.
Great in Office Space.
Shannon's also done a lot of, like, she's another character actress who's done a lot of work. I didn't write down her actress's name or any of the roles she did, but it was a situation where I was like, oh, wow, she's done, like, hundreds of things. Good for her. Once again, it was one of those people who were like, why are you in random horror movie in 2006? But all right. Like, even by, like, Hatchet 2, because Hatchet 1 was successful, I can understand why maybe a bigger actor might have chose to be in it. But this first one, you're kind of like, really? Well,
Kind of a gamble,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess at the same point, though, if you're Richard Reel, for example, you don't have to worry about it because you're still going to be remembered for... You've already done your iconic roles, so if you do a bad role, people just won't see it and won't care. You know?
Dude.
You'll still be remembered for being in Office Space. This couldn't hurt his, legend.
He already made jumpy conclusions. Got rich. Yeah.
So yeah, this is where we meet, and this is also where we meet the quiet girl who's named Mary Beth, and Ben obsessed.
Right, she's got two first names, which makes it really cool.
I'll be honest. This is one of the scenes where I actually kind of liked Ben's super awkwardness. Like I could get if it was unsettling for some people.
About the only one.
I thought there was another scene where I also thought the scene a little bit later with Mary Beth. Him and Mary Beth, when he was being awkward with her, I think worked. It was him and Marcus in my opinion, had no chemistry together as friends.
Really?
At least that's maybe I could be wrong. I've only seen them. I didn't notice chemistry there. They might have had it. I don't know. Because I've also heard other people review saying that, like, that was one of the things I really liked about this movie. Those guys seemed like they could be real friends in real life. And I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't not see it either, but maybe it's more so just their scenes were always supposed to be comedic, and their scenes were always the scenes that I felt didn't land in the comedy department of this movie. They were. I
didn't feel that way.
That's fair. And here's the thing: none of them were bad enough that like took me out of it.
Yeah.
Like they were just like the. At least Chris is making faces, and that's fair. It sounds like Chris is going to be the downer on this movie. It sounds like me and Isaiah are going to like this movie more than Chris, and that's fine.
Classic Chris.
Yeah, classic Chris. But yeah, so I'm gonna stop rambling and go back to the plot. But yes, in general, I like a lot of these characters. I really like this scene with him and Mary Beth. He's obsessing over his name. He's knockoff, Shaggy, but it's fine. We like our knockoff Shaggy. Sometimes you can't afford Shaggy, and you need to get Shaddy. I don't know. I couldn't think of it. I couldn't think of something. Yeah, I didn't like it.
A great value version of
Take it back. put it back in the box.
See, I felt like I tried to think of what vowel I could replace the A in Shaggy with, but none of them sounded not dirty.
Shabby.
Shabby. We'll go with yeah. I'm just gonna call him Ben going forward, but Shabby is the good joke that I should have wrote in the script.
That's the good one.
Definitely scripted. This is all scripted.
Oh yeah, I mean I have a script right here. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You just don't see the script.
Got a phone. There's no script on it.
Yeah. So yeah. this is also where we find out that she only paid $30. Ben reacts accordingly. Then the characters are all introduced. They keep all introducing themselves. And we have another really funny scene with Jim, Shannon, and Doug, where they find out that Doug is a movie. They see his camera, like, oh, you make movies, and he asked them, like, have you seen your work? And Doug's like, oh, you guys seen Bayou Beavers? And Jim goes, yeah, and Shannon says no, and then Jim says no.
Oh no!
It was just like,
this is probably the funniest scene in the movie.
I mean, I think there's a couple scenes. This is one of the funniest scenes. I think there are some lines from Misty later that I loved.
It's just like the delivery, the timing.
It was amazing.
It's like, you seen, what was it, Bayou Beavers?
Yeah, Bayou
yeah.
Beavers.
And then it's like so quickly his wife's no, and he's oh no,
oh no.
Oh no!
Yeah, I love these characters. Some people, I will say, some of the reviews I watched, they didn't love these characters. They felt that they just kind of didn't really fit, which I kind of see, but I think that was the point. Like,
yeah,
I think specifically what they were referencing.
Yes.
Stereotypical slasher.
One of the things
you start off with your diverse cast of characters.
One of the things they specifically pointed out that I didn't notice in the moment, but hearing them say it is a thing. In a short while, Jim gets his leg bit by an alligator, and respect to, the actor, he kind of barely reacts, which that is he just got his leg bit by an alligator.
Yeah, that is true.
And he's kind of giving that, like, comedy acting of, like, oh, it hurts! Like, maybe that's not the moment for that scene.
Yeah, don't you know?
Yeah, it's like, all right, we get it. You're from Wisconsin or Minnesota. We get it. You can react a little bit more to the alligator biting your leg.
I think it's fine.
Here's the thing. It didn't take me... Once again, it wasn't a flaw that it all took me out of it, but once I heard someone mention it, I'm like, no, it did happen. You're fair. If that's a reason you didn't like that character in this movie, I get it. Fair enough. But I still loved him. He is definitely one of my favorite characters, tied with Misty, which is also, to be fair, there is some personal bias of thinking she was really funny on Buffy and Angel, and she was also funny in this, which added to part of why maybe Isaiah might have liked Jim more, because he's seen Office Space. I haven't, so he might have an extra connection to that character, and that's how this works.
And I've seen none of those movies and or shows, and so I have no connections to any of these characters.
Impartiality.
I think I have the most connection to Ben.
Have you seen not another teen movie?
Nope.
Have you all seen School of Rock? Because
yes.
Ben's also in that one. Yeah.
Not another teen movie has Marcus in it. He's also apparently been in a lot of other, like, 90s comedies. But yeah.
No, Marcus definitely looked familiar.
Yeah. He's done a lot of things. None of them stuck out like, oh my gosh, he was that character. But it was definitely a couple movies where I was like, oh yeah, I've seen that. I don't remember what they were, though, off the top of my head. And it doesn't matter. We should get back to the plot. Because we're still just meeting the characters on the bus. So they're on the scare bus. And they get off the scare bus, actually. And they're about to get on the boat. And we meet Jack Cracker, who is our... Once again, this is a scene that I don't think personally landed for me comedy-wise. He's our harbinger for this movie, and fun fact real quick, he is played by the special effects guy who for this movie, John Carl Beaker, so that's cool. So he kind of warns them about, like, don't go out there, it's dangerous. I believe he specifically is the first time we hear about the name Victor Crowley, because he's our harbinger.
Yeah.
But and then Sean says, don't mind him. He just drinks his own piss.
Which, like, that could have been an okay line if that's where it ended. But then we have to show the shot of Jack Cracker actually drinking his own pee. And you're like, okay, cool.
Savoring it.
Yeah.
They don't just, like, show a sip and they pan away. It's like...
Yeah. And it's just like...
Yeah.
Did we really need pee drinking in this movie? I mean, maybe is it really?
Right.
To be fair, I'm not gonna say that I think
more
this movie
pee humor, baby.
I don't know if this movie is
needed.
above pee drinking, but I was hoping it was, I guess. But yeah, so he warns them about Victor Crowley, and then the tour starts continuing, and we get kind of this kind of scene. It's an establishing scene with some comedy, I guess, thrown throughout it, of just kind of them being on the tour for a little bit here, where not a lot happens, and there's, like, a lot of, like, characters calling out Sean for not knowing what he's talking about, which I guess they're establishing that. That's what the point of the scene is.
Namely Jim and Shannon.
Yeah, Jim and Shannon. But a little bit of Marcus doubles down at one point. Like, there's talk of, like, the fog. Like, him like, no, I watched this on television.
Those are just marsh gases.
Yeah, like, it was a situation where, like, okay, so, like, but maybe we only needed one of the scenes where we establish that Sean doesn't know what he's talking about. Not this, like, 3 scenes that are all, and it's all one scene, but we could have cut it down to one of the segments of this scene, I guess is what I'm saying. This scene felt like it dragged a little bit. Of just kind of being like, okay.
You gotta make that hour 90-minute mark, baby.
Yeah.
Or hour 30-minute mark.
But the thing is, this movie was hour 90-minute mark. It's a 2.5 hour movie. Oh
yeah.
This movie could not be a 2.5 hour movie. Oh, I liked this movie, but it stayed just as long as it could have.
Yeah.
But yeah, we also find out the legend of Victor Crowley at this point, which is, that his father just got mad one day because he was ugly and hit him with a hatchet. That's what Sean tells us, at least, which we then find out from, Mary Beth
says
that is not the truth, and that was not the Crowley house they just passed. Because it sounds like she might know more about what's going on.
Oh.
What is it?
To the future.
I wrote back to someone funny.
Back to someone funny.
Nothing before we get a Victor. I don't know. Maybe I see what it said. Back to some more funny nothing. So I thought that there was some funny moments in this, but none of it matters is what I'm trying to say here.
Got it.
But it took me a while to remember what that note meant. Before we get a Victor Crowley jump scare. Which, to be fair, is like one of the only times I'd say there was like a blatant jump scare in this movie. There was other moments where the characters were scared, but it didn't feel as pan over, make a loud noise, pan away from a shot of a thing as this scene did specifically. This felt like here's the thing. Scares and like jumps and stuff like that, those are part of horror movies. Even even a lot of good ones will have them in some capacity. This felt like the most bad jump scares. Like when we talk about when modern horror we talk about it's got a bunch of jump scares. We're talking about this kind of scare where it's just loud noise flash of a picture and you're like, okay, cool. Yeah. And that's what this one is. Again, I get it why it's here because it's them accidentally seeing him in the the marsh before he runs away. Like I get it structurally, but it is a generic jump scare, which for the most part, giving this movie credit, it didn't do for the rest of the scares. I felt like, but yeah. So then we go back. Now we have Ben, who keeps trying to talk to Mary Beth, and she just couldn't care less, and then he starts over explaining about how his breakup, which once again, like I thought it was funny. Like it was that like funny, like look at this loser character. I kind of wish he wasn't our main character when we have a character like that.
Oh, I love that it's the main character.
Okay, yeah. But I just he's very. I hear the thing. Once again, spoiler. I really like this movie. Any of my flaws are mostly nitpicks for me personally. I enjoyed like all of this. This is a movie I will definitely be watching again at some point. It is a fun movie. I own it now on Blu-ray.
Ooh.
Oh, fancy. But yeah, so Ben just keeps trying to, talk to her. She doesn't care. And he over-explains, talking about all his breakup, and his friend Marcus is just disappointed in him. And then the boat crashes, and it gets, kind of like beached on this tree or in rocks and stuff. And, they're going to go try to fix it, but then a storm starts. Another flaw I've heard someone point out in this movie, which is kind of fair. The storms and stuff kind of just happen when the plot needs them to. Which, a little too much. There are 2 times specifically where it just starts raining, specifically when the plot needs it to start raining. This point, to make the boat start to sink, and another point we will discuss when it happens, which, to be fair, I actually thought that scene was really funny when it happened. It was played for comedy, and I liked it. But it is kind of like, okay, cool, so the storms just happen. I guess God is on Victor Crowley's side, because when the weather needs to make things happen, it just happens.
He just hurls the thunderbolt, yeah.
So the rain starts making the boat flood, so they start kind of freaking out, and I don't know what happened here. Once again, sometimes my notes aren't the best, but I wrote, Jenna and Misty are funny. apparently they said something that I thought was funny, but not funny enough that I need to write down directly what they said to retell you guys. But enough
Probably just them calling each other skanks and then
I really
remarks.
liked their dynamic between each other. They were funny. They were stupid. It's stupid humor for sure. But I also like grew up on stupid comedies. I own the American Pie movies. I mean, like, I'm not saying I have the greatest taste in humor, but I also like good comedies too. Don't worry, audience. Don't worry. I don't just like American Pie. I don't even really think American Pie holds up. But that's not today's podcast.
Oh, is it not?
No, that's next week's podcast.
No, the horror.
Yeah, I'm not showing up to that one. I'm sorry.
Oh, fun.
Aw.
But where were we? Yes, they're funny apparently, and then the boat starts to sink, and Jim is the voice of reason, telling them, "Hey, we need to cross this branch because if not, we're gonna die. The gators will get us if we let this boat drown." And not drown, but the boat sink. And that's fair. So then Jim goes to walk across the tree, and he slips and gets his leg bit by a gator and barely reacts, as we've already established. Which, once again, I didn't even notice it in the moment, but once the person pointed it out, I can't not remember it as that. I'm like, oh yeah, no, he did kind of just go like, it got me, kind of a thing. And you're like, you think about it, like, you just got bit by an alligator.
Dude. And it's meant to be a major, handicap.
Exactly.
I don't know how you didn't notice it in the moment.
Not
It was pretty blatant to me.
It's meant to be played off as a joke. It's meant to be, crap, you got bit by an alligator.
And he's just like, and I think I saw, like, did it just, like, grab onto his pants, or... No?
Yeah.
It bit him.
Oh, it got my pants. Oh, gosh.
golly,
I tell you what.
But, maybe he didn't react too bad was because maybe Mary Beth saved him just in time as she shoots the gator off of him. And then most of the people start to make it to the shore, no problem, but Misty, Doug, and Mary Beth, they fall into the water, and it's all fine. They all escape. It's this scene, it's a fake out tension scene where you think they're gonna, get, like, one of them's gonna die, like, oh, maybe Doug's gonna die here, because who cares about Doug,
Doug meets his just desserts.
Sure. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's fair. I mean, Doug is kind of a creep, and we find out that later that, like, we're not just saying, this isn't me just, admonishing the adult entertainment industry. This is me saying he is literally, like, a creep. But,
Yeah.
yeah. But I don't know if I'd say he deserved to die. Spoiler alert, he's in a slasher movie, so he does. But yeah. They all end up making it safely, and then we have a scene where just everyone starts freaking out because Mary Beth's got a gun, and apparently that's insane. That is
crazy.
No one in Louisiana has ever had a gun before.
I mean, to be fair, maybe it's the living in Texas for too long that is, blinded me when I'm like, really? I mean, okay.
We're shocked about that? Yeah.
Freaking out that much about, like, it's not like she pulled out, like, some, like...
Handgun?
Yeah, it's not like she pulled out, like, some, like, crazy gun. Like,
I
she
whipped out my AK-47.
Yeah. And you're like, why do you have that here? No, she pulls out a handgun.
She cut that alligator in half with a select fire, or... Yeah.
But
it is, like, give an opportunity for some exposition. It's like
yes.
Question unfolding on question.
Sure.
Yeah.
But also, it's a little contrived, I feel like. That we're that freaked out over a handgun. But
absolutely.
We're freaking out. And we find out that she's looking for her family. We don't quite know who her family is yet.
Vin Diesel, probably.
Probably Vin Diesel. Or, I mean, at this point, I immediately, not knowing anything about the plot, went, oh, Paul and Ainsley from the beginning. But we're not supposed to realize that yet, I guess, because there's a bigger reveal a little later.
The Shy Pisser. I remember.
Yeah.
It set the tone for the whole movie.
Then we also find out that Sean is from Detroit, and that he is not... He was doing a fake accent before, and now he starts...
And now he goes into another fake accent.
Yeah, which I guess there was a line where it is kind of established this is also a fake accent. Because he kind of drops the accent later, after being called out on it.
Dude, yeah.
So I don't know if it's intentional.
I don't know.
It's not as overt, but yeah.
Very bizarre.
It's a weird... The only reason why I feel like it was intentional, because there is... Well, I mean, I guess not, but I'll recover it when we get to it really briefly, but Marcus does, like, acknowledge him changing his accents multiple times. So, like, there is a line from him talking about, like, not knowing where he's from. Like, so, I don't know if this accent's supposed to be fake. But here's the thing. I watched the making of documentary. It's not a real accent, and it comes across as just racially insensitive. I understand, yes, he is an Asian actor who could have said no to doing a more stereotypical Asian voice, but it still was kind of jarringly fake and racist sounding. Like, there's no real way around it. Like, it sucked. It was like, okay, cool. Why is he doing this now? Like, I was fine with the fake New Orleans accent because that was part of the character. Yeah. This part, if it is part of his character, it's never explained. It's just there.
Yeah, because as it has been explained, he's from Detroit.
Yeah. Yet he does mumble in, like, both just Chinese at one point, and then later it specifically says Mandarin, even though all of it sounds like mock Chinese, like, throw out random syllables. Like, maybe it wasn't, but it came across as insensitive. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, here's the thing, I am a white guy who maybe doesn't have the right to talk about it, but it felt offensive to me. It's not a thing that I technically am allowed to be offended by, though, I guess. It's one of those situations, so I don't know. We'll move on. Where were we? Sean's from Detroit. Let me find that. Where would that go? Where'd that line go in here? Here we are. Then, now Mary Beth tells us the real backstory of Victor Crowley with a cool little flashback. Which we find out about in this flashback that Victor Crowley was a deformed child, as was established before, and that his dad, who is played by Kane Hodder outside of makeup, which is it's a cool moment.
Yeah,
and it's just
Kane Hodder is his own father.
Yeah, well,
as in real life,
that is a fact. Yeah, Kane Hodder is playing Mr. Crowley in this scene, and he is being just a really loving dad to his I mean, it's not like his kid's not a monster. He just has, a disability. Like, which is, I kind of like that. It's a weird movie. Because at this point of the story, you're like, okay, cool. They're actually kind of not, like, the point of this story, I guess, is, that, like, he was misunderstood. But then later he becomes a murderer. So it kind of goes back to that, I think we talked about this with, I don't remember which movie we brought it up. But it's definitely something we will bring up when we talk about Halloween. It's just this decision in Hollywood, which it's a sad thing that's been happening for forever and still kind of happens, is this depiction that if you have any sort of disability or mental disorder, you must be a monster or violent. And this movie kind of starts as not doing that, and you kind of get this like wholesome backstory for him, but then in the end, he's still going to be the serial killer for this movie. Like, so it's like this like points for the beginning, but also you still fell into a sad flaw that is in a lot of these movies, which, I don't know. It sucks because I think the statistics it's basically the opposite. Someone with a mental disorder or mental or disability are more likely to be victims of violence than to perpetrate it. Like, it's a shame. It's a shame that that's in Hollywood so prevalently, but it's been there forever and sadly is still there. Like, it was still a flaw in Halloween Kills. Like, it's still a thing that we're still dealing with in Hollywood.
Yeah. Someday we'll have statistically accurate monster movies.
I mean, just like, do we have to have the character be mentally, like, why can't he just be a monster? Like, why can't he just be a monster of a person, Why couldn't he just be I mean, I guess there'd still be people, I'm sure you can never make everyone happy, so there would still people be like, oh, great, so he's just a redneck? But why couldn't he just be a redneck? Because first off, the makeup doesn't look great for the Victor Crowley when we see him. Like, did Victor Crowley have to be deformed? Yeah. Like,
yes.
Why?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's rejected and snubbed by society and mocked and everything.
Yes, sure.
You've got to give him a reason for that.
I mean, yeah, I get it. It's just it's a shame that it's a trope that is so heavily used in horror, and more so than any other form of media, not media. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a shame that we so reliantly go back to, monster. They have special needs or are physically deformed. They will become a monster at some point. Like, yeah, this character was at least pushed to it, unlike some characters who just start evil. But it's still like, does he have to? I don't know. That's my little soapbox moment. I'll get down and go back to loving this movie, because I still do love this movie. Because, like I said, it's a flaw in, like, most horror movies, so I'd have to not like horror movies, and I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that.
But yeah, so he's a really loving father and we find out, yes, the kid's being bullied, and specifically some kids one night on Halloween show up to bully him some more by, trying to, throw firecrackers to, make him angry or something, and just bully him. And it, causes a fire, and the house starts to burn down, and Mr. Crowley shows up, realizing the house is burning down, and he wants to save his kid. So he chops down that door, not with a hatchet, by the way, with just an axe. I saw someone point that out in a video I watched, and it's very true. Also, the cover of the movie, which I don't have on me. Sadly, I would have shown it to the camera, but it shows a picture of this like two-sided axe, which is not a hatchet.
Right.
It is also
by definition.
Yeah. He never once actually kills anyone with a hatchet in this movie. He only ever kills someone with that axe, and that is also the same axe that was used to hit him in the face, was that two-sided axe, not a hatchet. So him having the name Hatchet Face and all that literally makes no sense technically. Because the director or the
sounds a little bit
set
better,
dresser just didn't realize it was. I guess didn't realize that was not a hatchet. So that's cool. But yeah, so
that green.
Yeah, so he ends up hitting him in the face with it. He falls back and presumably dies. But I guess because he's a horror movie character, somehow he got out without his father knowing. Because horror movies got a horror movie. And eventually,
they're kind of unclear about it.
Yeah.
Like, even the characters themselves never really land on a conclusive answer about it.
To be fair, this is also a legend, so there's an element of... It's not like we were hearing this from Mr. Crowley, which does kind of... like this is all someone telling a story at the very least secondhand, so...
But yeah, any eyewitnesses there.
Mr. Crowley, he dies of, a heart condition later. And then the ending of the, legend is that Victor Crowley can still be heard calling for his dad every night. Ooh.
Oh.
Also, one real quick little fun fact. This story, this part of the story, like, of Victor Crowley, was a story that Adam Green came up with when he was 8 years old. When he was 8 years old, he got really into horror movies, and then also that same year went to camp for the first time. And he was told they were all told not to go to this one cabin, and he kept asking, "Oh, why?" Because he was really interested, because he really got into horror movies. So he's like, "Oh, what's the story here?" And they wouldn't tell him. So he just started he made up this story and told all the other kids, and
that's really cool.
So this part of the story, at least, like the kid being bullied and then getting a hatchet to the face, like that is from 8-year-old mind of Adam Green. And I'll be honest, it's kind of a cool backstory for like in a movie like this. Obviously, maybe when he was 8, the story wasn't as good, but the fact that he even got the seeds of a story that good, like that's a pretty cool origin for a monster character. So all right. And he came up with it at 8 years old. Then she continues to she says something else at this point that I don't remember exactly what she says, but she says something that confirms to the audience, in case you were wondering, that yes, it was Paul and Ainsley that were her family that she's out here looking for. And that they also realize that they are right outside the old Crowley house. It's right there on the hill. And they all start to, after a little bit of discussion about it, all decide that the best course of action is to head towards the house. Because I think that's where I think that's like towards where the roads might be, I think is the theory or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Just on the other side of the house.
Yeah, so they head towards there, and then they hear Victor Crowley calling for his daddy. And everyone but Shannon gets really scared and kind of stops going. But, Shannon's like, no, I'm taking my husband and I'm saving his life. Because he got mildly irritated by that alligator bite earlier, and I need to save him.
Yeah, he didn't like it too much.
It mildly ruffled his feathers.
That was pretty inconvenient.
He's allergic to alligator. Yeah. Swelling up.
But yeah. So her and Jim, they press on before... What's that? It's Victor Crowley. He comes out in a scene that isn't great. Sorry. The intro to him scene. This scene leads to one of, every kill in this movie is amazing, but to two of the best kills in this movie. But when he first runs out of the house, he, stops right in the light, shakes his shoulders and roars, and it's the first time you see the makeup, and you're like, all right.
Yeah.
There's a reason Jason wore a mask for most of the movie to cover up the makeup. like, you only see it for, like, the one or two shots here or there. Like, you gotta hide the makeup, because it's kind of hard to make a good, fully... Like, here's the thing. For what it is, practical makeup, like, I prefer the way he looks in this than a CGI character, for sure. But it's still, like, it's one of those moments where you go, oh, all right. That's what we got for him? All right, cool. All right, let's roll with it. Let's rock with it. Let's see what happens. Oh my goodness, he's running towards Jim, and he is repeatedly hacking him with an axe, not a hatchet, in the shoulder. And there is so much blood, and just his shoulder starts to separate from his torso. And I think eventually he gets...
Not here.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
way down.
I think he eventually gets, like, cut all the way in half at the end of it, too, before, like, half the body falls over. And at this moment, Shannon starts to run away, seeing this viscera we just saw. And, oh, buddy, she gets caught by the back of the head. We have a shot where Victor grabs her, puts both his hands in her mouth. This is the shot we were talking about earlier, where the camera spins around him really awesomely to hide the cut in his back before coming back around to have the moment where we have the prosthetic head now that gets ripped from the jaw like a Pez dispenser. It is beautiful how vicious it is. Maybe I'm a sick freak and that's the problem, but man, was this kill one of the best kills I've ever seen in a horror movie. To be fair, I haven't seen as many horror movies. We've established that as the show has gone on. I'm trying my best to do some off-stream watching. We talked about it last week where I've seen the first two Texas Chainsaw movies now and stuff, like Halloween and Halloween 2. I'm trying to be a little bit more versed in the horror I'm talking about. But oh my goodness, were these kills so awesome. I love
this. Definitely felt like one of the most brutal kills we've ever seen.
Dude,
period.
Yeah, like maybe some Final Destination stuff might come close, or some Saw traps, maybe like movies that exist in worlds that are just there to make vicious deaths, and that's it. This specifically, this scene, this double kill, like Jim's kill, is already awesome. Like, if Jim's kill was in any of these other slasher movies we covered, we would have been praising it for being, like, the best kill we've ever seen.
Oh, relentless.
And it's just kind of there in this movie. Like, when you think about that, Jim's kill is amazing. And it's just, I mean, a minute later, we're going to have a woman's jaw ripped in two.
Yeah.
I love this movie. I'm not saying it's good, but I love it.
That's fair.
I forgot to flip when I was just talking about all that. All right. Turn to Shannon. Falling over. What? Oh, sorry. Then as he's being right after he rips her up, Mary Beth, she shoots him a couple times. One last time in the chest, which makes him fall over. Presumably dead. Solid 50 minutes into the movie. We're done. Time to go home.
I can't believe we defeated him already, guys. Good job.
One shot and he's dead. Then Mary Beth reunites with the rest of the survivors. And then we cut to Doug, who's alone, running in the woods. And Doug gets caught by Victor and gets his head spun off by Victor. It is... We've seen, some cool... the Friday the 13th 4 had a pretty cool, like, spinning the head backward kill. I'd say this was on par with that. Like, it was a very fun, simple... Like, it's honestly one of the simplest kills that's actually... One of the first times I feel like in this movie, a kill that I've actually seen in another movie. So many of the other kills in this movie feel so original. This one, slightly less original. But still, it was still done... Credit to John Buechler. There's a reason he is up there in the echelons of great makeup effect artists. He does some great work in this movie. Maybe, he should have told Adam Green, hey, maybe don't splash buckets of blood in some of these shots. But the stuff that I feel like he did, which wouldn't have been that, was amazing. Then we cut back to Marcus and Sean and the rest of the group. And Marcus and Sean get into that argument we talked about, and they start fighting. And there is a line in this moment where he makes some sort of how he's Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, and how you don't even know what accent you're doing anymore. And then after that point, for the rest of the time we see Sean, which isn't that much longer in the movie, he's not doing any accent. So I don't know. Like, I don't know if that, generic Chinese accent was supposed to be actually him and the actor forgot, or if the character was, for some reason, still faking an accent in that scene because he's that untrustworthy of a character. I don't know. They get in a fight for a little while. They kind of just tussle around. Nothing really happens before it gets broken up. And we find the rest of the gang and them find Doug's bag. And we find out that he lied about being Doug Shapiro, director and producer. That's not his name. And, this is one of, I think, my personal favorite line in the movie is after they realize this. I don't remember what his real name is. It doesn't matter. But Misty is upset because she has fallen for this a third time.
Yeah.
And it's just like...
Not twice.
Yeah, she goes, I can't believe I fell for this a third time. And it was the perfect beat of just... And like I've already established, I really like Misty and Jenna's chemistry, especially together. And like I just thought she is one of the best dumb blondes I've personally seen in a movie, and that's what they're going for with her, and they deliver it, and I love that line. That line got me. Then we also find out that Jenna has also lied, because there's a funny scene where they kind of like there's this beat where they go, does anyone else have any other lies they want to tell us? And they kind of look all around at them. They pan the camera. No one says anything. Then they pan the camera one more time, and Jenna goes, I didn't go to NYU. Because there's one line earlier about her going to NYU that just felt like a throwaway line when it happened. I think it might have been a line where she was trying to show that she was more, like, smarter than Misty, maybe, that she went to college, I think.
Yeah.
But then there's just this, like, once again, it got me. Like, I really enjoyed, like, her, because she seemed really, like, upset that she, like, lied about it. It's like, I didn't go to NYU. It's like, all right.
I went to Hofstra. Oh.
Yes. Yeah. NYU, I think she was talking about, like, NYU was my first choice, but I didn't get in. And it was just like, all right, you got me, movie. Then they hear Missy's phone going off. And what song was it? Do you remember, Chris?
Who?
We were singing. I remember you and me started singing along to whatever song her phone was on. Whatever her ringtone was. It's some like classic with quotes heavily around that 2000s like pop music where I went, that song. All right, okay.
That's ringtone worthy.
Yeah.
For
I don't remember what it was,
phone.
sadly.
Oh, it was.
It's all right.
It's kind of significant due to like situational irony as well.
I don't remember what it was.
It had something to do with like being alive. And I was like, nice. It's funny because they won't be for much longer.
And then they follow it and they realize that they have actually followed it back to accidentally being at the Crowley house again. And Ben and Mary Beth make this plan to go look for more weapons. So they leave them, and when they're looking for weapons, they find some dead animals, and they find a couple farm tool weapons they can use, and also Mary Beth finds the bodies of Paul and Ainsley. Then once again, sometimes my notes, I guess just to explain where my brain was at this point, wasn't a funny enough scene that made me want to tell you what it was. But my next note is, Misty is hysterically dumb. Apparently she says something else that, like everything else I pointed out, was also just as stupid that made me chuckle heartedly, apparently. Because I thought she was hysterically dumb, apparently. Then Misty, Jenna, Sean, and Marcus are scared by a noise in the bush. Marcus goes to investigate, and it's just a raccoon! Except for the fact that Victor Crowley does pop up behind them immediately and takes a belt sander to Jenna's face.
Dude.
Yeah.
Oh.
For another very brutal kill.
Which, a little fun fact about that belt sander, it specifically doesn't actually make sense officially because it is a gas-powered belt sander, which does not exist in the real world because why would it? There's no reason to ever have a gas-powered belt sander, but they needed a reason for it to be out there. And at first they were gonna just cut it, but the set dresser guy was like, "Hey, if I can find a way to make this work and make it work on set, That shows that it could be done, so we can keep it in the movie. So he made working like gas-powered belt sander prop. So they used it. And here's the thing: once I was watching this video about it, I was like, oh yeah, I guess belt sanders are not gas-powered. In the moment, I just go, oh my gosh, he's belt sanding her face, and that's all.
Wait a minute. Is there like a pull cord or something?
Yeah,
He's like rip it up, or
I don't know if
how do we
he
know
does. There's like a little like gas canister next, like on the side of it. I don't know if you see him pumping it,
doing anything gassy.
Yeah, but it just.
Okay.
Gassy.
All right.
I think there might be some smoke coming off it, like a kind of like steam, kind of like you would yeah. But it was a cool scene. And then it before he's able to fully kill her with it, though, Mary Beth does run up and hit him with a rake. Sorry, not rake, shovel. This is a shovel at this point. She hits him with a shovel and drops the shovel because that's important. We'll need that shovel later. And then, once again, this is the moment where I give some fun facts about this movie. I guess actually this is kind of a little bit of a longer fun fact, but there's a couple moments here that I want to talk about. Whenever the cast was first time they'd ever see Victor Crowley, it would normally be the first time they would see Victor Crowley. That is a big thing Kane Hodder was really about, was like he did not want, like whenever like they go over shots before, like he would be like in a giant jacket and like a visor over his face to try to cover up as much of it as possible, and like he would stay away from them on set as much as possible because he really just wanted to instill fear in the cast. And like he would also like make a lot of like guttural grunts and stuff, and like screams, getting into character, and like he'd be like 20, like a couple yards, like 10, 15 yards away, whatever, like further out into the forest, just like yelling and kicking things to like just get into this like monstrous character that he is. Which, I mean, like, I guess credit to him that he's that, into like being that. Also, anytime he'd be chasing like a cast member, he would, even after they would yell cut, he would just keep chasing them. And I think it was Mary Beth's actor who talked about her like solution to this was she would always just run right into the producer's tent because she knew he wouldn't go there. Like, just trying to get away from, like, it's just like, I love, like, it's a little maybe more method than I personally would ever do if I was an actor, but I gotta respect it. It gets some genuine terror from his cast members in some of these scenes. Specifically this scene, I know they showed a shot of them being so terrified, like, and like Jenna's actress was talking about how she was like crying before the scene, like just hearing him grunting and yelling so loudly, like across, like she was just getting so scared because he's that imposing and that creepy with what he does. And like the first take, she just couldn't scream, like she had lost her voice because she was so worked up. So yeah, Kane Hodder is a gift to acting, but also maybe takes it a little further than he needs to. But also, I love him, so I get it. It's cool. I'm fine with it. But yeah, so now Sean gets his leg chopped off by the shovel from Victor Crowley, and then Victor puts the shovel by his neck and stomps it into the ground, chopping off his head.
Yep.
And then
very sharp shovel. But
now the shovel is stuck in the ground, sticking straight up. So he looks over and realizes, oh, Jenna's not dead. She's got no face, but she's not dead. So he goes over and he picks her up and he impales her on the stick of this shovel, and like not just like a little quick impaling, like all right, cool, she's dead. No, he like double taps, pushing it down to make sure she is impaled. Yeah. Then the final four regroup, and this is something I saw someone point out that I once again didn't notice in the moment, but once someone heard it, brought it up, I can totally see it. This is probably the third or fourth time it's already happened, and we haven't even addressed it yet, but every time these characters get scared by Victor or something, they run off, they stop, and they regroup, and they wait.
That's true.
They get scared again, and
yeah.
Once again, when I watched it, so this is a small nitpick because it didn't take me out of the movie. At least I just enjoy, but because it was one of the moments where normally like there'd be funny dialogue in these scenes or important exposition where I'd go, okay, no, they have to have this conversation to make the next step of their plan. Like, I got it, but it might be they might have done it a little too many times for the sake of making a good story. Like, they do it a couple too many times because they stop, they regroup again, and then what's that? Oh, now that they've stopped and they've given him time, Victor pops up and he scares them. Ben stabs him with a pitchfork and they run away again. And then the survivors stop and they hatch a plan to go back to the shed to get some gas cans. Because Ben saw those earlier and thought, hey, that might help us. Maybe we have to take the fight to him. And Marcus doesn't want to do this, but, no one listens to Marcus this whole movie. Marcus doesn't want to do any of the stuff that's happened.
Which is fair.
Poor Marcus should still be up in that tree we forgot to even mention he was in earlier. Marcus should just stay in that tree. He'd still be alive today. Probably not, honestly. Knowing Victor Crowley, he'd be like, all right, I'll go grab my chainsaw now, and I'll throw it and chop the branches down, and then once you fall, I'll then kill you. But
something to that effect.
That would have been cool. They should have done that.
They should have.
So they break, once again, though, they also do the fun, breaking into two groups, plan that always works in horror movies. They split up, and Marcus and Mary Beth stay out to kind of try to get his attention, try to, distract Victor Crowley, so they yell, and Marcus calls him a bunch of names and stuff. And this is while Ben is looking for the gas cans, and I think Missy's supposed to be watching at the door. I think they kind of don't do a great job establishing what Misty's role in this was before she gets her head thrown in off screen to scare him while he's getting the gas. And then also her torso, because, the head wasn't enough. Victor wanted to be like, hey, people have thrown heads at people before, but have they ever thrown the body afterwards? Because I will. Yeah, and then Ben Victor comes in, and but after Victor comes in, is about to get Ben, runs in. Mary Beth runs in, is how I wanted to say that sentence, but my brain just started it in the middle. Runs in, Mary Beth does, and she hits him with like a garden trowel in the back to stop him for a second, and then they dump the gas on him, and they light him on fire.
Well, Olden, doesn't she jam it in his head, right?
I couldn't tell if it was his head or his back, so maybe, quite possibly.
But it's one of those,
Yeah, it's really cool.
No.
It's a really cool moment. I mean, kind of. It's very small. It's a fine.
Yeah, it passes.
And once again, could it be his head? Possibly. Could it be his back or neck? Possibly. It's all one giant mass of silicone. So, but yeah, and it's once again, it's Kane Hodder, and despite the fact that the man literally almost died in the 80s doing a fire stunt, the man loves to do fire stunts. So this fire stunt is awesome. That's not a fun fact, just a fact about Kane Hodder.
Yes.
He was on some news, gonna do a news broadcast once, and was gonna do a fire stunt, and it went really wrong, and he had no water, and he was spent. It was something it was either somewhere in the 6 months to a year in a hospital afterwards. This 81, and but then think about speaking very connected to this movie because of John Carl Buechler being involved as well, but Friday the 13th, Part 7, this movie, the man just still does fire stunts and doesn't care.
Yeah.
And it's crazy when you think about the fact that the man almost died doing a fire stunt. But yeah, but this fire stunt, as we kind of alluded to earlier, is actually put out by random rain, which, once again, in this scene, I find hilarious. Because it's what it's here for. It's played for laughs. They beat him.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, and it's I love it. But also, if you think about it logically, the only two times it rained are literally just to push the plot, which is okay, maybe throw a third one in there just because at some point to offset it, but they didn't. So it kind of just comes across as the only two times it happens. But also, that would have cost more money, and this movie was probably already over budget with all the gore effects they had to do. So yeah,
they should have had it rain blood.
Just buckets of blood. Just throw buckets of water over it. It'll look like rain.
Oh no, it's pouring torrentially on Victor Crowley. That's crazy.
But yeah, Ben, Marcus, and Mary Beth, they do some final girl running in the woods until they find a cemetery. Crowley shows up with a hatchet that he misses throwing at them. This is the only time he actually has a hatchet. In this scene, it is a hatchet. He throws it, completely misses, hits a statue, and that is the only time a hatchet is in this movie. Just thought I'd point it out. There is a fun fact about this hatchet. So I gotta try to set up the story. This was on the documentary I watched. It's a fun story. It's a fun little like prank they did on set. They had this hatchet that they were gonna throw in the scene, and they like talked about how they couldn't find the rubber hatchet, so they were gonna use this real hatchet. So, and Ben's actor was like, "Are you sure about that? Maybe we don't use a real hatchet." But he's like also like, "Well, Kane Hodder, he's the stunt coordinator. Obviously, he wouldn't do something he couldn't do. This will all be fine." So then, when they yell action, Kane Hodder throws that hatchet for this scene right at Ben's shin. But it's the rubber hatchet. They just didn't tell him. They made him think he's about to throw the real hatchet, and then threw it. He made sure to hit him with it.
That's awesome.
I think it's great. One real quick other story, just because it doesn't really fit anywhere else, but it does kind of fit in the. Genuinely sounds like such a joyous set to be on. Like everyone seems to be having so much fun. One person, Mercedes, who played Misty, made the mistake of complaining to Adam Green that, Kane Hodder's, he's been like messing with everyone else, but hasn't messed with her. So now Adam Green put this plan into play, where he had Ben's actor go into the room, like filming a fake like little like thing for like the documentary, being like, "Hey, tell me about what's your favorite Victor Crowley moment?" And then full makeup, Kane Hodder runs in the door in like her what's the word? Her dressing room. It's not it's the one where it's on wheels. My brain can't remember what that's called.
Makeup trailer?
Trailer was the word I was looking for. Yeah. Trailer. Yeah. They're in her trailer, and he busts through the door, and she just freaks out initially, but then just can't stop laughing about it. Because it's, once again, just seems like a great... That's the one thing I will say real quick, just as takeaway, is everyone involved in this movie seemed like they were having so much fun. Like, everyone seemed so happy that they were getting to do this. Like, the producers and Adam Green, like, this was like their dream, and they were making it happen. They shot like this really, really cheap trailer to try to get some money, and it worked, and people got into it, and they made this movie. They got Kane Hodder, and these are horror fans who got Kane Hodder, Tony Todd, and Robert Englund all to be in their movie. Like, that's insane. And like, it's exactly the kind of movie even though this movie has flaws, this is exactly the movie they wanted to make. They wanted to make a super violent slasher movie with a bunch of boobs. Which, guess what? That's what they made. And, credit to them. And it seems like
succeeded.
They also did a really good job as like a director and stuff, and like what's the word? Like a production, because all the interviews and all the like little shot like behind the scenes footage, everyone seemed to be having a great time. Every actor, the actors like I'm forgetting his name, but the actor who played Jim, was kind of a big deal at that point already. He had a career, still seemed to be having the time of his life. Like, they did a great job putting on a set that everyone enjoyed to be on, which, power to them. There's a lot of times you hear about stories, some movies that, might be considered art and better than this, like, I don't know, The Shining, where, Stanley Kubrick did not do that. He did not have a set experience where everyone was happy. Like, so, credit, I personally think we'll get to that. My opinions on the behind-the-scenes stuff of The Shining when we cover The Shining when we cover that. But, yeah, I think this is definitely the better set to be on. That's my personal opinion, but that's not the point of today. The point of today is to get back to this. That was just a quick side that went too long. I'm sorry. So, yeah, he throws the hatchet at them. He then chases them to a locked gate where Crowley tackles Ben and... Okay, so I don't know what this scene is supposed to be. I think I heard this is supposed to officially be vomit of some sort, but he vomits this viscous white vomit down Ben's throat.
Yeah.
Mouth spooge.
Yeah, it looks like...
That is what it is.
It looks like seminal fluid. I believe it's supposed to be vomit, but it does not look like it. Yeah, it's
No.
it's kind of just gross, but not in like a they creeped me out way. In a what what the heck kind of way. Which maybe that's what they were going for, but with the tone of the rest of this movie, I think it was just maybe some sort of weird issue where they got like the wrong color vomit or something. I don't know, because it looks unsettling in a way that I did not expect. Randomly, an hour and 15 hour 20 minutes, whatever we are into this movie. It'd be one thing if you had a tone of being really creepy like that throughout, but this wasn't. So it just felt really jarring when it happened. I don't know what it was supposed to be exactly, but it was gross. And then Victor almost grabs Marcus, but Mary Beth kicks him off, but Marcus does still end up getting grabbed afterwards. He gets hugged until he starts bleeding. It's like a bear hug. He starts getting bleeding. And at first I was like, that's it? That's the death? He gets hugged to death? But no. Don't worry. This movie would not let that be how a character died. Because, yeah, he then rips off his arm while Mary Beth and Ben escape. And then Victor just, slams his armless body against the crypt, double killing him, it felt like. It felt like this is like, kind of we talked about in like Friday the 13th part, the remake, where like that one character, the actress talked about how she died 3 times. I feel like this guy died at least twice, because he got his arm ripped off and he was definitely dead. But then we had like a recreation of the sleeping bag kill from part 7. Once again,
yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, with Carl Buechler involved and Kane Hodder, but there was a lot of, I feel like, homages to part 7 specifically of Friday the 13th in this. Because this secondary death, after he was definitely have already died from bleeding out from his arms being ripped off, he gets swung against a crypt, double dying. And it's cool. Where was I? Here we are. Then Victor growls, is what I wrote. And then we cut to Ben, who is vomiting up the white liquid. Then Victor grabs, we kind of shot of Victor grabbing a, piece of the fence, a bar of it. And then we cut to him throwing it into Ben's foot like a javelin. Perfect aim. Apparently, Victor Crowley, before being bullied as a kid, was a star athlete.
I feel like he was probably trying to kill him with it, right?
Probably, so he probably actually missed. But it felt like he was so far away to even get that close. It's kind of an insanely impressive moment. But hey, who cares? If you're at this point in the movie and you're worried about, could he really do that? Yeah. Like, he already ripped a woman's jaw apart in the first 40 minutes, if that. But yeah. So he gets him right in the foot, and Ben and Mary Beth kind of struggle with it for a little while before they realize that their best course of action is to, while still in his foot, push the bar further, like, kind of make it so it's, like, a little bit more horizontal
attack mode.
Yeah, so Victor Crowley can run right into it because Victor Crowley, he's apparently even though I would argue the Victor Crowley we've seen so far is not really dumb. He's honestly freakishly smart for the amount of stuff he's able to pull off. But hey, whatever. He runs into it, and he's dead. Maybe. Wait. Oh, no, he is. Good look, he just spurted blood at his face after we waited. Once again, it's kind of a funny scene where we have this like moment where we have this beat of like, oh, they're fine, and then blood in the face. It's like, okay, all right, cool. You don't expect it at that point. You're like, okay, cool. Maybe you expect him like freaking out and being alive again right there. But at least I did not expect a gross out blood to the face shot there. It was like, oh, okay, funny. At least I thought so. Then Mary Beth and Ben get on a boat, and Ben's foot looks disgusting, and Mary Beth, she's just crying about her lost family. Okay, we get it, Mary Beth. A lot of people lost friends and family today. It's not all about you, Mary Beth. But Ben, always a beta, he comforts her, and
always a beta.
Before that is, here's the thing. If you're a horror fan, which, they are, and you know what, this is so many allusions to Friday the 13th in this. They're on a boat in the middle of a water feature. You know what's about to happen. That's right. Victor Crowley grabs Mary Beth and pulls her into the water, starts kind of trying to drown her. Eventually, he leaves her down there, apparently, because she's eventually able to start escaping on her own. She sees Ben's hand. She reaches out towards it. She grabs it. She gets pulled out. And something I didn't even notice on the first time watching, but I did notice when I watched a video about it, she is on Ben's hand. It's not. I thought they cut away to realizing that, oh, maybe she was tricked into thinking it was because she was drowning. No, it is Ben's hand being held by Victor Crowley because he's ripped off his arm because Victor Crowley has killed Ben off screen. And Victor Crowley, I believe, gives one last, scream and growl, and we cut to credits, and we go back to that awful song from the opening credits.
Babble, babble.
Yeah, babble, babble.
Other thing.
You got the sex in your violence or whatever, but not that song. That's actually a good song.
That's
it's Rebel, Rebel, Rebel. Don't forget the violence.
Yeah.
That's a line in the song.
It is.
Yeah.
And
that song is awful. But we'll just jump right into our thoughts because this is actually like an episode that's not going to be freakishly long for once, which is nice. Good for us. We finally didn't talk about an hour and a half movie for more than 2 hours. But yeah, this movie it's not a masterpiece by any means, but it's fun. That's my thoughts, at least, is that I had a great time with this movie. It is a very fun movie. What I want from here's the thing, we've established, I have definitely wasn't a horror fan going into this podcast, so I've kind of picked up what I like in horror mostly through this podcast, but I love me some slasher films, and this is what I always wanted a slasher film to be, in a way. I wish, honestly, I would say, I wish the plot was a little better, but even then, I thought it was really funny. I'm a comedy fan before I was a horror fan, so, I appreciated most of the comedy. What I want from a slasher film, though, is awesome kills, and so far, at least, I have not seen a movie with better kills than this. Like we've established, there are flaws with those kills. Really, why are there buckets of blood being thrown at trees? Did we need the buckets of blood literally being thrown at trees? No, we didn't. But I don't mind it. Here's the thing. Once again, I noticed it watching it initially, but I didn't really notice how egregious the buckets of blood thrown at trees were until I watched a review online where that was their sticking point of one of the things they didn't like about it. And I was like, oh yeah, that did happen a lot, and that is stupid. But I loved the movie. I loved most of the characters, and the few characters I didn't love didn't do much, so it was fine. I didn't care about Doug's character, but Doug's character was just there to die. So, okay, that's all I need in a slasher. And it was a fun slasher. It's what I wish we could get from a Friday the 13th movie. I hope we get a new Friday the 13th with this much gore. Jason is a better character than Victor Crowley, so if we could get a Jason that could kill this cool, that'd be awesome. But, I still really enjoyed this. Is it art? No, but it didn't want to be art. It wanted to be a B-movie slasher, and it succeeded. Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I gotta preface my opinion with the cold hard facts, which is that I think I just might personally be getting burnt out on slashers. I don't think I like them as much as Austin or Isaiah do. And it's not that I don't like slashers. They're just not my favorite genre of horror. Now that being said, I think as a slasher film, the kills were about as over top as they could be, and I mean, I don't know if there's a whole lot else you could ask for except for maybe not buckets of blood being thrown at trees. And I guess that's a fair concern, a fair critique. But aside from that, the kills really deliver in this movie and feel pretty brutal every time they happen. It's not just a stab through the chest. It's, somebody's face getting sanded off with a gas-powered belt sander that shouldn't exist, but it does. Or somebody's head being torn in half, like in King Kong, or Peter Jackson's King Kong.
Yeah, with
the
T-Rex.
official movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
Which is exactly what I thought. I was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna rip her head in half like King Kong. And then he did. And I was like, all right. All right. I wasn't in for the beginning part of the movie when they were flashing boobies at me, but I'm in now.
It's fair.
I think as far as comedy's concerned, Jim and Shannon were about the high points it got for me. And then as soon as they died, I was a little bit sad. I knew it had to happen, and I kind of thought that they would probably be the first among the group to die, and they were. But I didn't mourn their loss any less for the rest of this film, because it left us with Ben, Sean, and Marcus, and thankfully Misty and Jenna. Yeah, despite all the faces I was making during the podcast, I'm bringing it. I'm a little bit of a twist. I did enjoy my time watching the movie, for the most part. Yeah.
That's what baffled me about your faces, because I was watching this movie with you. Like, he seemed to enjoy it, but he's seeming like Freddy versus Jason negative during this review, and I'm like, he liked it while we watched it. What's going on? What is the swerve?
I just wanted to throw the audience for
go
a loop.
like really think about this movie and think of a bunch of flaws that I didn't notice. Like, I mean, yeah, it's not perfect, but what is he like? He's like poo-pooing on my parade this whole like video. What the crap?
Poopily.
Poo-pooing on your parade.
All right, no poo-poo on my parade.
All right, Isaiah.
Oh, poo-pooing. I thought you said poople, like P-O-O-P-L-E.
I'm poopling on your parade.
Poopling on my parade.
Poopling all over the place.
Also, real quick before Isaiah goes, I do want to just warn Chris. There are a lot more big tentpole franchises of slashers. There are going to be a lot more slasher films you're going to sadly have to watch if you don't love slasher films.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, there's a lot of iconic ones we have to get to. There are some non-slashers we're hitting, but I don't know if we're actually hitting any this year. I'm sorry.
Expect my mood for the rest of these podcasts to continue to decline.
Hey, there'll be peaks of joy. We'll watch, like, I don't want to give
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I don't want to give any spoilers what we
in
might
time.
be covering. So, but yeah, maybe, or maybe some other classics. Maybe ones that have to do with certain holidays that are coming up this year on a Monday.
Thanksgiving.
We are doing a Thanksgiving horror movie, and that is also a slasher film, though.
Yeah, Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Spoilers! Don't tell them that we're talking about Thanksgiving. They don't need to know that yet.
Oh,
they might stop listening to the podcast.
They might think it's the other Thanksgiving slasher movie.
Hey, there's I can't remember the names of them.
No.
There's a couple. There's like one or two.
Oh, yeah.
There's like Pilgrim. That was like a Hulu exclusive.
God, it really sounds like you're just making it up at this point.
It's part of Hulu's
kind of
like horror thing.
No, you're not.
Maybe with just Puritans.
To be fair, the review I saw of it, it actually sounds like it's a really good movie. Or at least a fun horror movie, at least. Like, I don't know, I'm not saying really good. It's not, The Shining, The Thing, or John Carpenter's Halloween. I feel like those are the only movies those are the only, like, classic horror movies anyone ever says are really good.
Horror movies, yeah, it's fair, I guess.
Which I guess the answer is just be John Carpenter or be Stanley Kubrick. Those are your answers to making a good movie.
You don't have a lot of options.
Toby
really.
Hooper, and for, Texas Chainsaw is also appreciated. But sorry, Isaiah, I cut you off.
Oh, yeah.
You're not allowed
Chris,
to have a
I'm
word
sorry.
in edgewise.
I will give you another twist. I do think I'm always really, really wary of using the word flaw because it seems like such a final conclusory judgment about something that could probably be discussed more. But one thing that I will say is a flaw that we haven't really talked about is the cinematography. And it's not like, the cinematography throughout the movie is bad. But there are definitely shots where the camera lingers from pretty far away on scenes that tend to dwarf the monster. And you can watch Crowley come up against the rest of them and know intellectually, like, okay, that's a lot taller than these characters. But it doesn't feel like it, as opposed to when the camera's, like, pulled right below him. And the movie does have those shots, but it also has some where it's very much like a home video or something. Like, okay, I'm trying to get all this in one nice wide frame, and then I'm going to close it around them, and I'm just going to keep it there until this scene is done. Just one thing to point out. I think the good parts of this movie vastly outweigh that. Buckets of Blood Again, that is kind of dumb, but once again, like
I think
just
that needs to
the
be
good
a
parts of the
shirt
movie
you
just
make at
outweigh
some
that so
point.
much. But there are buckets of blood,
Yeah,
and they're so
buckets of
obviously
blood.
like you don't have to be Dexter to understand like that's from a bucket. You watch it float onto the screen, and you're like,
I
that's
think you
anyway.
have to be a blood splatter analyst.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
I'll be honest.
Um,
I didn't even notice it.
Dude, I don't know how you didn't,
I'm
but
joking. I definitely noticed it. It just didn't. It was enough where I was like, "That's weird," but I didn't like think anything of it. I just immediately went
yeah,
next shot. Cool.
yes,
Oh,
it
cool. Now
shouldn't
he's
be
ripping a
like
guy's
this
arm off. I
huge
don't care
structural
if
critique
blood
of the
hit a
movie.
tree.
Oh, look,
You know.
yeah, but I think you'd said earlier that it doesn't want to be art. Maybe you're right. But I do think it wants to be more than what previous slasher movies have been.
Mm.
Even like it wants to surpass the classic. And I see that in comedy that lands, dialogue that makes sense and is funny and is in character. I think it's rare in the movies we reviewed so far to have the dialogue hit all three of those things. And this movie does it. The things that the characters say are things that they would say, and we really hear their individual voices. And it's funny. I thought Marcus and Ben, I thought their scenes worked. I thought Marcus and Mary Beth worked, especially because like I've harped on this before, but I do think you occasionally see main characters in horror movies and in other genres, especially where you've got this like you've got the comic relief and these other characters that play these very colorful roles. And the hero's just kind of there to
Vanilla.
be ferried along, yeah, and do the job, and that's it. And that's not really the case of Mary Beth and Ben. The tension between them at first is like established for good reason, and the budding relationship is established well and gradually. I think they help each other. Um, they learn more about each other. I don't know. It's just I think that unfolds well, and it doesn't feel for it. It feels natural for the most part. The story's just well rounded. It's a well rounded story, and it's told well with really entertaining characters. I think the only weak spot is Doug, just because he speaks like three times, and in that, he's playing kind of an entertaining part. But the
Sean's
character, like
also
the
a
more
flaw.
say what,
Sean is also a flawed character.
I mean, I like he's not my favorite character, but I like Sean. I think he fills the screen well.
Mm,
He's entertaining. I mean, I
it's
like
fair.
Sean,
It's fair.
I feel
but
like the concept behind Sean is probably more the problem than Sean himself.
That's fair. No, that's fair. I don't think it's the actor's fault. Which weird like spoiler. I don't know if it's how much of a spoiler it is. The actor returns. He plays different characters, but he's in the rest of this series. So
Ah,
I feel like I've seen him in other things too, but I can't
yeah,
pin it. Same deal with like four of the actors
yeah.
in this movie.
Um,
The only one I recognized was the guy from School of Rock and
mm,
Richard Reel from uh, Office
Office
Space.
Space. Yeah,
But yeah, like overall, story was really well told. What more is there,
yeah.
right? I mean,
No,
that's something that has been lacking in so many of the movies we reviewed. And I mean, I love the gore. That's the answer to what more is there. Like, obviously, you gotta have good kills for a good slasher. But this movie delivers on that as well.
I mean, I agree, but also don't agree because I also think I think there are horror movies that or slasher movies specifically like especially earlier ones that if you think about it as a gore, there's like none, but are still amazing. So, but I see what you mean when you think of what I want from a slasher movie. I do agree, I want gore, but then you think of like Texas Chainsaw almost never the original never shows anything, but somehow
Oh,
still
really?
works. I mean, it does,
Oh,
but like in comparison.
mm.
But yeah, I don't know. That's just
One more final thing that I kind of just realized upon like rolling back over
fair.
all of the parts of the film is that there are so many scenes where, Victor Crowley is downed and for all intents and purposes is just left there despite the fact that he has killed all these people. And that Mary Beth is definitely out there for revenge and should want to like cause excessive harm to this person and shoots him once, sees him fall over, and isn't like, yeah, I'm gonna just go empty out the clip into him afterwards just to make sure.
I mean,
And that kind of doesn't make any
I
sense
get what
actually if
you're
you think about
saying, but you also
that is
just
a valid
you
critique.
also just like pointed out every slasher film ever, which you've already pointed out that you don't love, but that's every slasher film ever. They go, oh, he's dead, and they leave. How many times do we watch characters tiptoe around Jason?
In this part, it's a little bit more egregious because, like, Mary Beth clearly went out there to kill this.
For revenge.
She went out there looking for her family. She didn't. I'll give you once she knows he's killed her family, but that's much later in the movie after she doesn't have a gun. I mean, I'm not saying that that's not somewhat of a flaw, but I'd argue that it's a flaw in every movie. Oh, I shot him once, he's dead. I mean, it's such a flaw in slasher films, and to be honest, this is post Scream, so maybe do better than it. That is literally pointed out in Scream. Like, that's how big of an ingrained thing this is in that genre of, you just go, oh, he's dead, but he's not. Oh, it's they literally talk about, like, in the first Scream, like, oh, the fake out death at the end, like. And don't get me wrong, this is post-Scream, so learn from what Scream taught us. I don't disagree that that's still not somewhat of a problem, but I also feel like it's a problem you could literally level against every slasher film.
Yeah.
Unless you got Dr. Loomis in there shooting him 6 times!
Yeah,
6
Dr. Loomis!
times! Even though it was 7 shots. But hey, that's...
Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to that franchise.
Yeah.
Which is...
coming next year.
At a point in time.
Technically next year. But we might watch that movie this year on Halloween, like I said already, teasing. What? What can we do talking about? What? Halloween's on the day we release? You think we would cover John Carpenter's Halloween? I mean, let's be real. Like a spoiler. We're going to be covering John Carpenter's Halloween and Halloween because our podcast comes out on a Monday. That's when we release our podcast. And Monday is a Halloween. How do you not? Like, how do you not do that?
You must.
Yeah. But we are not doing the whole series this year. I'm sorry.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry. Halloween Ends won't be on VOD yet.
Not yet.
And we're not gonna. I can't take notes in the theater. I mean, I guess I could, but I'm not going to. But next week we're not covering Halloween because it's only May. We are covering Hatchet 2. Woo! I've heard that it's not as good. But hey, that's a horror sequel for you. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.